Hello and welcome. My name is Thomas, and in this video, we're going to talk all about organizing your WordPress content. Okay, so in the previous video, we talked all about the content creation process when it comes to WordPress, how to create a new post, how to categorize it, how to add tags, how to go through the process of determining what type of content or what format of content this is going to be. So whether it's going to be a blog article, whether it's going to be an audio post, or whether it's going to be a video post. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about those types of things. That is primarily how to organize the content on your site, not only how it shows up on the back end, but also the front end. Now, one of the things I went ahead and did is I switched over to a different free WordPress theme. This is actually the 2017 theme. Yesterday we were working, or I should say in the previous video, we were working with the 2020 theme. And then in the next video, I'm actually going to be introducing a completely different theme that you guys are going to be able to get access to. But again, we're just exploring the fundamentals of WordPress, and I wanted to make sure I switched over to a theme that supported post formats, since we're going to be doing that in this video. Okay, so without any further delay, let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so here we are within the WordPress dashboard. And again, this is the WordPress site that I set up over at WP Engine. If you didn't already, make sure that you head on over and check out some of the previous videos in this series. I've actually created a link below where you can actually view a playlist which has all these videos. So again, if you missed one, make sure to hop back in there and take a look so you're up to speed. So there's a lot of pieces here. Again, if you're really new to WordPress, that we haven't really covered, and that was actually on purpose. What I wanted to do was focus first on the content. And the content really is going to be managed in this little section here. You notice that there's kind of this little space here, and there's a little space up here as well. So if we're to click on settings and ignore what you see on the screen and pay attention only to the sidebar, you see there's a little space here and a little space here. That essentially is helping us know that this is our content, and this is the pieces that actually manage the site itself, kind of the more maintenance or admin type pieces. Similar here, this is the dashboard, and this is a section that's specific to WP Engine. What we were focusing on the previous video on is this section, and we're going to continue to focus on this section, although we're going to focus a little bit less on the editor and focusing, on creating the content itself, and more on how we can start to manage this. So we touched on at one point the difference between posts and pages. So I'm not going to get into that here again today, but what I am going to do is focus on this screen right here, which is where we're actually going to manage our content. So there's a lot of things that we can take a look at. First of all, I see a big button to create a new post. That's pretty self-explanatory. One of the things you'll also notice is this black bar at the top, and you'll have a drop down here where you can create a new piece of content. That's just kind of to make your life a little bit easier. If we go over to the far right hand corner of our screen, we'll see that we have a little tab here that says Screen Options. This is where we're going to be able to organize what shows up in each of these columns. So by default, it's going to have all of these checked. But if you've only got one author, maybe it doesn't make sense for you to show that, so you could uncheck that box to hide the author. If you're working with a lot of posts, what I typically recommend if you go beyond 50 posts is that you put this up maybe to something like 100. So that way when you get to past 50 posts, you're going to show them all on this screen. You won't have to scroll, you don't have to keep clicking next to get to them. So we'll go ahead and click apply. Obviously that's not going to apply here since we only have 2 posts, but you kind of get the idea. We're going to click to hide and show any of those different pieces right there. And then there is an extended view if we want. This will actually just show a little bit more information. In essence, it's really going to show us the excerpt of that post itself. For most cases, I'm not going to recommend that, particularly if you've got a lot of posts, because that's just going to double or triple the amount of scrolling that you have to do in order to access that. Beyond that, WordPress is a nice little help screen in here. So if you need to view their support or documentation, you can always do that. But most of the time, it's going to be pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so below posts, what we've got next is something called the status. So these are all the posts. These are our published posts. And let's go ahead and create a new one right here. This is a draft. Help if I could spell. There we go. And we're just going to click this button here to save this as a draft, which we talked about in the previous video. That means that it's not live, it's just something that we're working on. And here's the status right here. You can also set this to pending review if you have maybe writers and you want to keep this internal and maybe they need to show it to you or to an editor. They could set it to pending review. That's a different status. And that, again, that kind of applies more to if you're going to be managing your content in-house and you've got kind of a team of writers or something like that. Okay, so now what you'll see here is it's got the word draft next to it, but up here you'll see that now we've got this added link that says draft. Essentially what this is going to do is going to list out as many different statuses apply to the posts that you've created. Again, a status can be a draft, it can be published, it can be scheduled if it is scheduled to be published in the future. If it's pending review, that's another one. We can also move something to the trash, and you'll see that's another status. You can think of the trash as very similar to the trash on your computer or the recycling bin if you're using Windows. You put things in there, and then at any point in time, you can actually go in here and then empty the trash. Again, it just kind of saves space on your server, but it gives you that extra added step to ensure that you don't immediately delete anything that you don't want to. And as a quick aside, it's super important that you have backups in place when you're working in WordPress. Now, this is one of the reasons why I recommend WP Engine. Again, a lot of different hosts have backups integrated, but I know for a fact that WP Engine does. It does daily automated site backups. And so what you can do is you can just click on the backups tab and you can actually scroll through each of the daily backups that were taken. So at any point in time, you can just roll back to one of those backups. You just want to make sure that you have that. You want that not only to hedge against any potential mistakes that you may or may not make while you're using the site, but also if you're running backups, or I should say if you're running updates or if you're installing plugins, it's possible for things to get corrupted or go wrong. You always want to make sure that you have a fail-safe. Okay, so that's it for the statuses. And again, we can go in here and we can trash these. And again, this is just kind of how we're going to manage. Right here, what we're looking at, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense since we're just kind of clicking around with two different posts. But once you have hundreds of pieces of content, it's going to be super important that you're going to be able to go through here and organize it accordingly. If you just want to see all the drafts, if you just want to see what's published, if you just want to see what's pending review, if you're an editor or you're overseeing the site and you want to see things before it goes live, that's a great way to be able to do that. Okay, the next piece that we're going to look at right here is kind of this filtering bar is what I like to call it. I don't know what the official title is, but for one, we can actually bulk edit posts. So let's say that maybe you've got 50 posts that are published and you realize that they've got the wrong author, which seems kind of strange, or maybe they've got a category that you need to add after the fact. So what we could do is we could actually check this box right here. And this is going to select all of the posts visible on the current view, right? So if you've only got 100 posts that it can show maximum, we touched on that earlier, it's only going to show a maximum of 100 posts. So that's something to be very cognizant of. Then we're going to go to bulk actions. We're going to click edit and we're going to click apply. And anything we do in here is going to apply to all of the posts that we have selected. So if we want to add a category to all of those posts, we can do that. If we want to change the author, we can do that. If we want to change the comment status, so whether or not we want comments, you can also change the status itself. So maybe we want to take all these and set them to draft, pending review. We can also change the format. So again, we talked about this a little bit in the previous video. Pings, I typically would set that to do not allow, and then whether or not the post is sticky. And when you click update, depending upon how many posts you're changing, it could take a little bit of time, so just be aware of that. The next couple of boxes we have here is just another way to filter through these lists of posts. So for example, if we just wanted to see the month of December, We could click filter, and as you'd imagine, nothing would change just because that's all that is here anyways. So we'll click filter again. And then again, if we had created multiple categories, you could just filter by category. So that's essentially what that box is going to, or that kind of section right there is going to help you to do. And then the search field is pretty self-explanatory. You're just going to type in keywords and it's going to search through all of your posts, and you're going to be able to see those by keyword. And then again, we've kind of got, this is duplicated. This is the same bulk actions that we've got at the top. They also show up at the bottom. And in addition to edit, you can also move to trash. So if you've got a whole list of items you want to move to trash, you can just simply click move to trash and then click apply. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move back over to this left-hand sidebar, and under posts, you'll see that we've got a number of other options that have been we have available to us. One is to be able to add a new post. It's pretty self-explanatory. Again, that's just going to take us to this new post view, and this is how the formats will show up, which we'll get to here in a moment. But first, let's go to categories. So real quick, let's go ahead and break down the difference between categories and tags. They're both ways to organize your content, but you want to be really careful with how you use them so that they don't get out of control or overwhelming for you as the user. So what I typically recommend is that for categories, you try to pick maybe between 5 and 10. And really another word that you can use for them in most cases is topics, right? So for example, for my Rightly & Co website, I think I've got 8 or 9 just off the top of my head. And so I've got things like productivity, WordPress, brand, I've got design. So I think writing is another one. So they're topics that I typically create content on, and they're more broad umbrella topics, right? So there's different types of design. So design is a topic. And when I talk about brand, there's brand identity. There is, brand building. There is brand fundamentals. So they're broad topics that I speak on. And then you can have even fewer categories if you want to, but I would recommend not going beyond something like 10. If you find yourself creating a lot of categories and they're very niche, then at that point you're starting to venture into the realm of tags. What I recommend for tags is that you can be a little bit more loose with them. You can create just about as many tags as you want. There's not really a limit. So you can think of them more as the tags that you would put in your YouTube video if you're familiar with YouTube. So they're just things that it's just another way to be able to filter out content for the user on the front end, or just to use them as a way to organize the content further. Okay, so let's go ahead and pop in here. We see we've got our categories here, and so let's go ahead and say that productivity is a category that we want to create. And let's say we've got another one. Let's just go ahead and use what I was talking about for my Rightly & Co website. Let's go ahead and just make some of these. And I would, again, recommend that you keep these very granular, very not generic, but broad in their scope. Now, what you can do as an option, let's say that you wanted to get a little bit more in depth with how you were using them. Again, I recommend at least keeping your parent categories very clean. But let's say I did want to rely less on tags and more on categories. What I could do is create a subcategory and put that under brand. And there you go. You see that it's now a subcategory of brand. So one of the things that we'll notice off to the right-hand side is that this is the count, the number of posts to which this category has been applied. So that's something really important to keep in mind as well. So if you're to click on this little button, you'll see all of the posts that have had that category applied to them. Now, in addition to what we've done there, you can also see that if we click on one of these, it'll take us to the screen where we can edit this. The slug is what's going to show up in the URL. So when we change our permalinks in the next video, the URL will be something like mywebsite.com/category/design. So that's what's going to show up in the URL. Here you can again specify the actual parent category if you have one, and then a description. So I can just put in some short text there, click update, and this is going to appear in most themes. So in the theme we'll be looking at tomorrow, there'll be a heading that says design and then a subheading underneath it that's smaller, and it'll be the description. So we'll click update back to categories, and there we go. So you can kind of see how you're going to start to manage each of these. And again, you'll see here a very similar ability to actually bulk edit these, or bulk delete these, I should say, if you ever need to. Bulk editing doesn't really apply to categories. And then again, you can go through here and you can search all of your categories as well. And similar to posts, you've got screen options where you can go through and you can specify what columns show up and how many categories you show at once. So if you're going to get a lot of categories, which again, I don't really recommend, but if you're going to, you can change the number that show up here. Okay, next let's pop on over to tags, and this is going to start looking pretty familiar. So again, this is going to look very similar to what we had in the previous one, but a lot of times you're not really going to be adding your tags in this screen. Most of the time, what I recommend is you add your categories beforehand, and then you start applying them to your posts. Your tags you just kind of add as you go. The biggest difference you'll see here between categories and tags is tags are not hierarchical in nature. In those categories, you can create subcategories, as we did with brand identity, whereas tags you cannot. So again, you can kind of think of this as more of a generic, or not generic. Categories are going to be more generic. Tags are going to be more extremely specific. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's go ahead and take a look at a post that we've created. And let's take a look at how those apply to that specific post. So as you see here, all of my different categories now appear. So let's say we wanted to apply brand identity to this specific piece of content. And let's say that we were talking about logos, and we were talking about colors, and let's say we were also talking about, we even tied in social media. You can separate those with commas, click add, and now you'll see that they're applied to the post. We're going to go ahead and click save, and there you go. You'll see they're individually there. We can delete them by just clicking this X button. But now let's head back on over to our tags. You can kind of think of this as our tag library, and you're going to see them all showing up here. So this is going to be an accumulation of all of the tags that you're adding throughout your posts. Then again, it's going to change based upon the specific theme that we're using, but some themes will actually show those categories and tags. So it looks like on this particular theme, it looks like we've got the category right here, and then we've got the tags down below it. So again, this is going to be different for each specific theme that we're working with, but somewhere on the front end, typically you're going to see some use of each of those. One of the other things we touched on briefly, but I didn't have a chance to show you because the theme didn't actually support it, was post format. So just really briefly, I just wanted to show you that alongside that classic editor, this is where you'll get to specify the type of format of this post: an aside, an image, video, quote, link, gallery. Some themes will have all of these. I think this is the maximum number that you can have, and some will just have a few of them. For example, the one that I have personally worked on will have a standard, which is just like an article, written content, image, video, and then audio. So, and I think there's even one for link, but I think that one's kind of in the works. So, but again, that's just a way to format, to specify the type of content that this is, the medium that this content is going to be. And then on the front end, depending on the theme, that will change how it actually appears and looks. Now, one of the things that actually worked into the theme that we'll be talking about in the next video, this, based upon which format you pick, the actual options for the post will change. But again, we'll be getting to that one in the next video. Okay, so now let's talk about the next type of content, which is media. And our media library essentially is going to become an accumulation of all of the different content, or I should say, images or PDFs or audio or video files that we add to our website. Now, as a quick aside, I highly recommend that you do not add video or audio files to your WordPress website. As a rule of thumb, they're giant files in comparison to images or documents, and they can and most likely will slow down your site and eat up a lot of hard drive space on your server. Long story short, I would save this just for like PDF or Word documents, or images, and that's going to be your best case scenario. Okay, so again, you can just add images to this at any point in time by just dragging and dropping them on here. You can view this as a list or as a grid. And then once you click on one of these, you're going to be able to see the image and a lot of information about it. You can edit the image here. I'm not going to really get into that because I don't really recommend doing that here within WordPress. I recommend using a different external image editor if you want to crop it or resize it, just because it's a little safer. You're not working with things that are directly on your server, but you can do that if you need to. You can add alternative text here. So this is going to be kind of the purpose of the image, as they say here. Essentially, this is what search engines are going to use to kind of try to understand what it is. A title, you can add a caption below it if you want it to show up, kind of like if you're captioning a photo that would show up on the image. You can add your own internal description, shows you who specifically uploaded it, what user, and then to what post it was uploaded to. So it takes us directly to the post where it appears. And then the file URL. So we can just copy that, and there is the direct link to that individual file on the server. So if you need that for any reason at all. Then there's the attachment page, which doesn't really have any relevancy anymore with most themes. And then you can edit more detail. So this just kind of takes us to the kind of more old-fashioned version of the image attachment or media page. Okay, so now beyond that, you do see that there is an Add New button here, which is pretty self-explanatory. You can drag and drop, or you can click this button to select files from your computer. You can also upload multiple images. So if at any point in time you want to, you can just drag over like 7 images, and it's going to just upload them all in tandem. Then you can go through here and you can sort by type of media file. So if you need to do that, all dates, and then you can also bulk select. So all you're going to do is you're going to click that, and then you're kind of checking each of these. And really the only functionality there is if you want to delete those items from your library, and you can do that. But again, this is going to be kind of the accumulation of images that accrue across your site as you are creating content. Pages, we already talked a little bit about this. I'm not going to go into this in depth, because essentially the way that we talked about managing your posts is the exact same way as it is for managing your pages. You're going to be able to see all the statuses. The columns are all customizable. We can change the number of items per page. All of those things are going to apply to pages as they do for posts. Okay, so the last type of content that we're going to talk about here is comments. Now, comments are going to be what you would expect, which is essentially a place on your site where people can leave comments about your article. So at the bottom of the article or piece of content, there's going to be a comment box. So let's take a look at how this looks in this particular theme. Let's go ahead and scroll on down. You'll see that there is a sample comment right here. And it says leave a reply. You're logged in as Rightly Co. If they're not logged in, it'll ask them to type in their email address, their first name, and website potentially. And then here's what they will be able to put their comment. Post the comment, and there we go. It now appears. Now, if we were to go back to comments, give that a moment here, you will see that that sample comment I just created is now appearing. Okay, now let's take a look at what that's going to look like if, go back to posts, view post, copy, we'll open this in a new incognito window. So this means that I'm not logged into the site. Let's try that again. So I've typed in my information, and then we can optionally have it save my name, email, website. We're not going to do that. We're just going to click post comment. Okay, now what we'll see here is we've got this little message that says your comment is awaiting moderation. This is a preview. Your comment will be visible after it has been approved. Okay, so as the site owner, here's what happens. You'll notice up here in the top menu bar, we've got this little 1. Then you'll also notice on the dashboard, we've got this highlighted comment. And then in our comments sidebar, you'll see that we've actually got a little 1 next to that. So that is now pending comments. So by default within WordPress, and we'll be talking about this one in the next video, we've actually got a section under discussion where we can actually manage the how comments are moderated and how we actually go through the process of managing them. We're just using the default settings right now, which means that somebody who is commenting for the first time, their comment will always be held in moderation, which means that you have to manually approve it before it will actually show up on your website. So as we can see here, it shows my name that I entered in, my website. It also shows my email address and my IP address, so that somebody will be able to know from where that was actually being sent. Okay, so beyond that, of course, it's going to show the comment, and then it's going to show where it was posted to and the total number of comments on that post. We'll be able to see where it was submitted on, so the exact date and time. So all that information is available to you. Now you can even also reply directly to it. You can also quick edit it if you need to, again, moderate it at any way. Maybe they shared sensitive information in here and you need to kind of blank something out or anything else. And then you can do a full edit. So this shows all the different pieces in there. If this is something that is spam, so if somebody has used a bot or something like that, you can actually moderate it as spam so that they won't be able to submit any more comments. There is also a plugin, which we'll be getting into a little bit later, called Akismet Anti-Spam, which is actually pretty powerful and it's free, built into most WordPress themes by default, and that's actually going to do a great job of catching most spam and then putting it in kind of your spam folder, which shows up here, which again is just kind of a status for that type of content. Okay, so now let's say we liked this comment. This is, we're fine with seeing this on our site. We can just go ahead and click approve. And if we want to, we can just go ahead and reply to it. Click reply, and you can do that here, or you can do that on the front end of the site as well. So if we're going to go to posts, view, scroll down to comments, you'll notice that this WordPress theme has the ability to click reply and then reply on the front end. But at the core, this is where you're going to manage your comments as they come in. You're going to be able to see where they go to. You can also click on that little title right there, which again we talked about takes you to that post. And then on that post, you're going to be able to see all the specific comments on that post in kind of a moderation view. So if you need to be able to moderate lots of comments that are on a specific piece of content, you can always do that here. And then lastly, you'll kind of start to see a pattern here between posts and pages, which is that you've got the status up here. We've got ones that belong specifically to me. We've got comments that are pending approval, which now we don't have any since we've approved them. Those that are approved, spam, trash, and you kind of get the idea. Between here, you'll also be able to bulk edit, so you can unapprove if you want to. We can set these all as needing to be reapproved. We can mark them all as spam or move them all to the trash. Now beyond that, we can also select all the different comment types. The only two types are going to be comments and pingbacks. If you're going to be disabling pingbacks, which I recommend you don't even bother with pingbacks, they're going to show up here if they did exist. And again, this is just a nice way for you to be able to filter between those. And then lastly, you're going to have the search comments, which will do exactly as you might imagine. It's just going to search by keywords. Okay, so that's it. The goal of this video was just to give you kind of the basic understanding of how to begin managing and organizing all of the content on your WordPress website. Now, what we're going to do in the next video is we're going to start bringing all of this together. We're going to talk about managing the website. We're going to talk about some of the pointers of getting your domain set up and then everything pointed over so that you can take it live. So again, we wanted to focus a bit on the content creation and management since that's really what makes WordPress so powerful. But again, in the next video, we'll be talking more about kind of managing the site as an administrator to make sure everything is running smoothly and that you get the most out of WordPress as a platform. As always, if you found this video useful, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video of the series. Hey, so I get asked all the time how I make my videos, so I decided to put together for you a free 1-hour training, which I'm calling the 7 Pillars of Effective Video. Again, this is totally free, so click the box in the top right-hand corner of this video. You can also head on over to rightly.tv/training. Again, this is totally free. Head on over to rightly.tv/training.